Here creating unsettled conditions across the west, so please be careful across the Intermountain region. There's our clash of the air masses, the cooler air to the north, and there's that warm air. We've seen record highs in recent days, and with these air masses clashing, we're going to see that chance of severe weather across the nation's heartland and in association with George. Here's a look at your drive home. It's going to be a messy one in association with Tropical Depression George across the southeast, so please plan accordingly. In the morning commute, again with the slow movement of George, the rain's still going to be around. We're concerned about roadways near the waterways, and we could see
wind for a living.
Right now, it's your local forecast on the Weather Channel.
Storm watch will focus in on first of all the tropics, and then we'll get into some active thunderstorms rumbling across America. Thank you so much for tuning into the Weather Channel. Hope we have helped you out through the coverage of George, and we'll continue to focus in on this storm and the impact it may make throughout the southeast for quite a while here. So stay with us for the latest information as you're making plans. George, the very latest, is now continuing to be downgraded. We continue to see it weakening, and that's good news. It was a hurricane for over 11 days, beached itself in southern Mississippi yesterday, and now has wobbled on down to a tropical depression located around Bruton in extreme southern areas of Alabama. That's the lowest pressure I could find, right on the Alabama-Florida border, just about northeast of Mobile by about 50 miles, and will continue to lift slowly on off towards the northeast, fanning the rain out for areas of Alabama and Georgia, up into Atlanta, Birmingham, Alabama, extending back to the Alabama border, and then continuing to inundate with quite a bit of rain in the Florida Panhandle. Some areas have picked up over 25 inches of rainfall with this particular episode. Now, with all that energy coming on board and interacting with the landmass, we're having the possibility of more tornadoes again today. Tornado watch out for portions of Alabama, Florida Panhandle, southwest Georgia, including Columbus, Georgia, near Montgomery, Alabama, down to around Troy, Opp, Andalusia, extending on down the Florida Panhandle near Tallahassee and Apalachicola, and again in southwest Georgia around Blakely and Bainbridge. So those communities, be on your guard throughout the rest of the afternoon for the possibility of tornadoes. We can see the latest digital radar in that area, again fanning the precipitation back into west central Alabama, but also on up into Georgia, with the heaviest thunderstorms outlined in yellow, indicating once again there may be some severe weather out of some of those cells during the course of the day, and we'll keep you posted and updated. Looks like the heaviest thunderstorms coming in around Apalachicola and curling up along I-10. Also another batch just to the north and west of Panama City, up to around the Dothan and Troy area. And again, some additional thunderstorms near Tallahassee on up into extreme southwestern Georgia. Blakely, Bainbridge may experience some of these intense thunderstorms this afternoon. Southern suburbs of Birmingham getting some rain around Atlanta, Georgia, nudging on up into Rome, and additional thunderstorms with some of the moisture that's been thrown on out north of Chattanooga. That's what's going on with George. You can see George on this satellite perspective and its impact here. We also have Jeanne continuing to spin on out, and as it does, it will continue to be a hurricane, Jeanne, and it continues to move northeast at 14, located west-southwest of the Azores with 80-mile-an-hour winds, so a minimal hurricane there. And Jeanne continues to track on off towards the northeast. It appears it will continue to pass right in here between Korea and Japan and create some problems. We have had winds well and up over 100 miles an hour during its life. Meanwhile, coming back stateside to point out some trouble areas, including the possibility of severe thunderstorms in the plains and associated with George, we have rain working its way on up into near Saginaw and Cadillac, Michigan, also showing up around Chicago to LaPorte, Indiana. That will continue to track eastward, but severe thunderstorms may be rumbling in an area from Russell, Salina over towards Topeka, on up into Nebraska, around Concordia, on over Concordia, Kansas, all the way back to around North Platte, Nebraska. Interstate 80 and Interstate 70, sandwiched in between, will be the heaviest thunderstorms this afternoon. There you can see the National Digital Radar. Rain will continue in the southeast, thunderstorms into the plains, peppered across the Rockies. Maybe some more flooding rains in the deep south. Be prepared for that. Heavier rainfalls this afternoon in the midsection of the country, and along that front it looks like more action as we move into this Tuesday evening, stretching all the way up into Michigan, back into Utah and the Sierra. Watch out for heavy downpours, maybe some small hail and gusty winds, as well as with some of those cells coming on board in the Florida Panhandle, southwest Georgia, and southeast Alabama. We'll keep you focused on George and its impact for you at the top of the hour. Stay with us.
George is downgraded to a tropical depression, but flooding and tornadoes still threaten parts of the deep south. For experts.
It's a day to clean up and assess the damage along a good portion of the Gulf Coast. In Gulfport, Mississippi, there's no rain, but a lot of downed trees and power lines. Folks there were hard hit by George. Hello, I'm Bob Stokes. Welcome to this edition of Weather Center. George is now a tropical depression, but still causing problems in some areas. We're also watching the possibility of severe weather in other parts of the country. But first, let's get the latest on the remnants of George with Dennis Smith in the Forecast Center. Dennis?
Thank you, Bob. We've been talking about George for the last 2 weeks, leaving a path of death and destruction. Over 300 lives lost, primarily in the Caribbean, several in the United States, and also over $1 billion in damage, again, anywhere from the Caribbean into the southern United States, including over $200 million in insured damage expected out of the Keys, and they'll still be tabulating it around the Gulf Coast region. Looking at some of the scenes from Mobile, Alabama during the course of the day today, as heavy rain left from this intense storm that slammed into the area yesterday. There's a few lingering showers. They are light. The winds are dying down. They should be tapering on off out of the Mobile area later on today. But now the process comes to cleaning up and assessing the damage, watching the floodwaters slowly recede, getting back into their homes. Please be careful with down power lines and flooded conditions. Satellite perspective still showing tropical depression. George, look at the clouds fanning on out all the way up into the Carolinas, up into Tennessee in association with this storm, but the main center is still parked back out into southern Alabama at this particular hour. In fact, there it is, located on the map for you, illustrating some of the rain that continues to spin on up into southern Alabama, Georgia, and the Florida Panhandle. And speaking of southern Alabama, we've had our own Jeff Morrow in that general vicinity keeping us updated on the potential for flooding. Jeff, what's the scene as you see it from Montgomery, Alabama?
Well, it's a very wet scene, that is for sure, Dennis. We have had the rain pelting down here for a good day and a half already, as George has very slowly taken its time and moving on by, and it still really isn't completely out of the area, obviously, with the center still south of the Montgomery area. But as you guys have been describing, just about all of the precipitation is on the east side of where that center is, fanning all the way out across Alabama into Georgia and northern Florida. On the west side of the circulation, it's basically dry. So once we get that center moving by Montgomery here, a little bit off to the east, and our winds start to shift around more toward the north, then things will dry out here, and we think that's probably going to happen overnight tonight and on into the day tomorrow as the center of the depression slowly moves away. Again, it has been a heavy rain here for much of last night on into early today. A driving rain, the winds gusting 30, 35 miles an hour at times earlier this morning. Official rainfall total out at the airport between 8 and 9 inches, and we may end up somewhere between 9 and 10 before all of this rain completely gets out of the way. No major flooding problems reported in this part of Alabama. That has mostly been confined to the Gulf Coast. But of course, as all this rain falls here, it all has to work its way down to the coast eventually, and so there's going to be flooding problems there probably for at least the next several days, if not even a week. So this is a story we'll be dealing with for some time. That's all from Montgomery, Alabama here, Dennis. Still a rather dreary Tuesday afternoon. Back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you very much, Jeff Morrow, on his updated report. He's been with us for a while covering the flooding scenario and this perspective from Montgomery, Alabama. Again, the very latest on George. It's still located into southern Alabama and continuing to fan some of that tropical moisture on northward. Now, one of the problems as you have a tropical system coming on board into the landmass is once again that friction with the land and can spin off some individual thunderstorms with tornadoes. That's why a tornado watch remains in effect for portions of Alabama, Georgia, Florida Panhandle, places like southeast of Montgomery, Columbus, Georgia, Blakely, Bainbridge, Albany, Georgia, even into Tallahassee, Florida, and over to around Apalachicola could be impacted by the possibility of tornadic activity. In fact, as we look into the next several hours through the next day, here's the scenario we expect as far as what will be making an impact. First of all, it'll take a while for the seas to calm back down in the northern Gulf of Mexico. The winds are slowly subsiding. The seas will slowly come down. Any venturing on out with small craft would be a dangerous scenario still. It looks like behind the system, even though the rains have tapered off, the rivers are cresting above flood stage and will continue to be a flooding problem in southeast Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and Alabama. Residents in and around Mobile, Biloxi, Pascagoula, Gulfport, be prepared for some flooding in those areas. For the immediate future, rain will continue to compound the flooding problem in southern Alabama, Florida Panhandle, and Georgia, and eventually as the system moves north and east, the rain will be working its way out of Georgia into South Carolina. In fact, on the latest radar perspective, we can see how the rain, look how the back edge now from Birmingham to Mobile gradually eroding away. So that's good news. They need a drying trend, but the rain still coming down pretty hot and heavy in areas from Panama City, Tallahassee, moving on up into Columbus, right in there. It appears those areas outlined in yellow and orange representing the possibility of some severe weather, while soaking rain still from Evergreen to Pensacola on eastward on up into Montgomery, so be prepared for some more wet weather. Northern fringe, Birmingham, I think you've probably seen the bulk of the rain you're going to see. Looks like it's tapering off to some light showers around you. Atlanta with a front to your north and east and the moisture from George, it'll probably still be in your forecast. Nashville with the front and the moisture. Chattanooga, similar story with showers and thunderstorms. How about the winds? They're slowly coming down too. Should not be a major problem except for some dangling power lines or perhaps tree limbs kind of hanging up there, maybe blown down by the winds as they progress on up to 20 to 25 miles an hour. Biggest problem will continue to be the flooding. As you can see, this amount of rain, southeast Alabama, Florida Panhandle, some 18 to 25 inches of rain. That's a lot of rain. And even though the ground can soak in some of that, a lot of it is running off and causing problems, and it appears just in the last 24 hours. This a snapshot of through this morning illustrating Montgomery to Panama City, the heaviest rains, even Crestview reporting over 17, almost 17 and a half inches of rain. Mobile almost 13, and as Jeff reported, Montgomery about 8 1/4 inches of rain. The flood threat will continue along the river basin in that area. We have flash flood watches out for portions of Alabama, Georgia, and the Florida Panhandle. More specifically, some of the river basins in that area, including the Biloxi River, cresting some 9 feet above flood stage today. The Big Coldwater Creek near the Florida Panhandle, some 10 feet above flood stage, and even on up into southern Alabama, running some 8 to 10 feet above flood stage. So serious flooding yet to come. Those that live in floodplains, be prepared for that possibility and be prepared to evacuate. We hope that you'll continue to monitor with us the latest on George. If you're unable to on your cable network, may I suggest our website, which is weather.com. Tune in and find out the very latest there as well. To find out the very latest elsewhere across the country, we return you to the studio and Bob Stokes.
Thanks a lot, Dennis. Region by region, we have a different weather scenario. In the Northeast, you could not ask for better weather. Let's start off with the good news first. The dew points, or the amount of moisture in the air, very low, plus the temperature about 70, 72 degrees. Fantastic, no rainfall. Great driving home from work weather in the Northeast, Boston, New York. But we have a front coming down in the Midwest, which is triggering the chance of severe weather. Of course, Dennis covered George. And in the west, we've got an upper air disturbance, and it's bringing in a southwesterly flow off the Pacific and feeding thunderstorms into Nevada and rain into Colorado. So that's what we're dealing with. We'll touch upon the areas of severe weather first, where we've got the threat of tornadic activity and severe weather. In fact, the tornado warning, there was a tornado warning in effect until just a few moments ago for Mitchell County in the northern part of Kansas. That has expired, but that just gives you an idea of how volatile the atmosphere is in Kansas with a cold front coming down and juicy air building in ahead of that front. Watch out, Kansas City, because you're right in that area where we've got that autumn air mass coming down, and it's colliding with that subtropical air mass, that hot air mass where we've had record highs in recent days in the south central part of the country, and you can still see it's pretty hot, 95 degrees in Dallas, and it's autumn. It's not supposed to be this hot. It's comfortable, though, in the Northeast. But yes, we've had records. We had another set of records today. Galveston, 94 for a record high, and Houston, Texas tied one at 94. But elsewhere, apart from this frontal boundary, which is producing some storms and wet weather, say, around Indianapolis, we also have some wet weather in association with the northern periphery of George. You can see in the Tennessee Valley between Knoxville and Nashville, little rough ride along I-40 when you get closer to Knoxville. The Smoky Mountains are getting a soaking right now, so you got to be careful in those hilly areas as you travel. Say if you're going to Pigeon Forge or Gatlinburg in that area, or headed on toward to Asheville out of Knoxville. It's going to be a wet one as you drive through the...
During the storm watch, we'll be telling you about severe weather away from remnants of George, but of course that's where we want to start with our tropical update and what's left of George. It's been around for about 2 weeks now. Let's take a look, and we'll see in the southeast that we're still dealing with it, but no longer a hurricane, not even a tropical storm. It was downgraded to a tropical depression this morning, and it will gradually weaken, but the moisture with this may be around for at least another 24 hours, and the whole thing is just not moving quickly, maybe 5 or 6 miles per hour. So that's why you continue to get the rain in areas that you've had it. And just like over the last probably just about a week, the action has been on the east side of the system, and so that's where the heavy rain is now. On the west side, all's clear. Fine day in New Orleans and Mobile, for that matter. Maybe a few sprinkles around. But east of this area of low pressure, we have heavy rain in Alabama and into Georgia. And as typical with a landfalling tropical system, we also have the threat of tornadoes. Typically weak tornadoes, but they're still dangerous. And if you get a warning, you should take cover immediately and don't discount this. We'll be talking about Kansas here in a moment. But this is your tornado watch. Southeast radar shows you, again, here's our area of low pressure. There's hardly even any clouds on the west side, but on the east side we have plenty of clouds and very heavy rain. We have been getting reports of more than 2 feet of rain in a large area, maybe as much as 3 feet of rain from this. So no doubt it will take a long time before all that water runs off through the creeks and heads down into the Gulf of Mexico. But here's Mobile, here's Pensacola, where you see these hot pink areas. Check the legend. That's 24 inches of rain. That's the top of the legend. So after that, not really getting an accurate picture of what's going on. We have had also observed sightings of rain. These are places where there's actually a rain gauge out there and someone's going out to check it. So this is a confirmation as opposed to a Doppler estimate. And this is really amazing. From 13 inches at Mobile to Crestview, Florida, 17.5 inches of rain. And that's just so far. Now in Mobile, you're probably not going to be adding to that. There may be a few passing sprinkles, but your rain, measurable rain, is really gone. Meanwhile, in Alabama, Florida Panhandle, it's still coming down, and in these lines of thunderstorms, we're also getting, in addition to the very heavy rain, some tornadoes being reported as well. Looks like some strong thunderstorms heading in for you in Tallahassee. Look out for this. Just east of Albany in Worth County, we have a tornado warning that's in effect. Now also Johnson County, which is a little farther north than you're seeing on this radar, a tornado warning is in effect at this hour. So we're going to get a few more of those through this evening. Certainly if you see these bands of thunderstorms coming your way, you should think severe weather, and it may be coming your way in addition to the heavy rain. We'll be tracking the remnants of George probably for at least another 24, maybe 48 hours. After that, we'll just see probably most of the moisture kind of head out to sea. So that's where George is. Remember, it was just a few days ago we were telling you about 4 hurricanes, tracking 4 hurricanes at one time. We now have no hurricanes to track in the Atlantic. We do have a tropical storm, though. This is Tropical Storm Jeanne, just downgraded about an hour ago or less from hurricane status to tropical storm. Good news here. Winds are at 70 miles per hour as it moves east-northeast at 9. It may be affecting the Azores Islands with some stronger winds, but it will also be weakening as it's encountering cooler water, and within 2 days it is expected to be extratropical. So we won't be talking about Jeanne for much longer. To the western Pacific we go, and this is Typhoon Jeanne. It's also weakening a little bit here, has winds now of 80 miles per hour as it comes up towards southern Japan. It is expected to be encountering cooler waters and becoming extratropical within another day to day and a half. So we'll be getting some reports, I'm sure, of some heavy rain and perhaps some wind damage as well out of Japan. Back at home, we're talking about severe thunderstorms with hail in Kansas and Nebraska, also into New Mexico, and we have one watch in effect aside from our tornado watch. This severe thunderstorm watch is in effect in central Kansas. Now, fortunately, so far, conditions on the roads are not too bad. You do have some rain west of Kansas. We have a few clusters of thunderstorms. These are heading to the east at 25 to 30 and are producing hail up to dime size. We'll keep you up to date through this afternoon. Stay tuned.
George is downgraded to a tropical depression, but flooding and tornadoes still threaten parts of the Deep South. For expert up-to-the-minute coverage, watch Weather Center next.